Hello and welcome to another module in your course. I'm so excited for your progress so far, and I hope that you have learned a ton already about pain and about your beliefs and crafting that new vision and the journey that you're going to go on in the future, in the near future, and that you're going to have arguably for the rest of your life, like myself. Remember that I have been through all of this that I am teaching you, and there's a reason why I am teaching you this in a certain way. I am saving you years and the heartache and headache that I went through trying to figure this out. So today we're going to talk about pain. We're going to talk about the expectation for pain after activity, and we're going to talk about the way that pain progresses, because there's sometimes a misconception around this where people expect that, okay, I'm going to start a program and I'm going to do these motions and I'm not going to have any pain afterwards. I wish that I could tell you that was the way that it works, but however, this is a process, and sometimes the journey goes, instead of on a trajectory like this, it goes around and up and down in all sorts of ways until we get to the top of that metaphorical plateau, if you will. And that's a really good place to start. With my patients and with my clients, I often use the analogy, it is kind of like rolling a little car up a hill. All right, and you've got 4 tires on the car, okay? And we take a couple steps forward, and then we might slide back just a little bit. We'll do another week, we'll take a couple steps forward, or maybe 1 step forward, and then we'll slide back just a little bit. And maybe we slide back as much, maybe we slide back 1 step, maybe we don't slide back at all. Everybody's pain journey is different. And along this little journey, this little car is moving up this metaphorical little hill until we get the car, all 4 tires up on the plateau, where that is your new normal for whatever the pain is going to be for you. Sometimes, like in my case, most of the time, that pain is not there at all. Sometimes that pain comes back. Sometimes it comes back faster. Sometimes you will have an activity or a stressor in your life, like a death in the family, and that pain can come back full force. I don't want to scare you by telling you this. I want to tell you this so that you are aware of what potentially could happen. Now that I've said that, though, when you do have stressors, like for me, I'll use myself as an example. If my pain happens to come back now, it's very minor. It doesn't last for more than a couple days, sometimes at the absolute maximum. I use my movement, my hydration, the element, and different things that I have to make sure that I can handle whatever happens to throw at me, whatever my body happens to throw at me. And that is the resiliency that you will build throughout this process to be able to handle things better in your life. So let's talk about pain expectations. All right. I want to make a couple of just notes on this because everybody is different. If your pain was only caused by a slight physical inflammatory effect, or even things like a disc herniation, and it didn't last that long, pain can go away really easy, actually. Pain is often the last thing to show up and the first thing to go away for people. So I want you to keep that in mind. Now, if you were somebody like me, I struggled with pain for 17 years. That pain and that effect in the brain, that stamp that my body had when I had that car accident, which was a major traumatic event that caused a massive curvature and fractures in my pelvis, and then I fractured my spine later on. So this has been repeating itself for a very long time. So in the beginning, when I started doing my exercises, especially things like deadlifts and squats, there was one point in time early on where I could not do a single leg deadlift without having sharp stabbing pain and cramping and muscle spasms in my back during the exercise. And sometimes that prevent me from even going forward with it until I finally got so tired of it and I was like, all right, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to move through it anyways. Now, that doesn't mean that when you're doing an exercise and you encounter pain, you move through it so much that it increases and then it is debilitating. Not the way to go about this. The red light analogy that we have talked about before is the way that we want to go about it. We want to make sure that, green is I'm safe, there is no pain, maybe a little tightness, maybe a little feeling, but I can do the motion and it doesn't exacerbate it. The yellow is more of a cautionary, just be aware of it, where you may have some pain. The pain may persist for a little bit, but as you do the movement, as you get the blood flowing and the body moving a little bit, the pain starts to go away a little bit. It doesn't go up over that 5-level pain. That threat level in the brain is not yelling at you, so to speak, okay? We can proceed with movement. It's perfectly safe. Now, if we are a red, caveat with chronic pain, because sometimes chronic pain can mimic a red, meaning it goes over a 5. It's very intense. It stops you from doing what you're doing. That is either, okay, we have to be careful with this with chronic pain. If we have an acute injury, you're going to be more of the, we don't really need to proceed with that movement, that load, that range of motion that day. Chronic pain, on the other hand, this may be your brain flagging you as if it were something wrong when it really is not anything wrong. So we maybe take a break. We maybe minimize the range of motion, as I've instructed many of you that are working with me one-on-one. Maybe we try a different exercise out. Maybe we stop and breathe through it, and we see how it goes when we come back to the next rep. If we try it and it just gets louder and louder and louder, you have two choices. You can stop and make your body sit with it and expose yourself to it and say, I'm safe. I know that nothing is wrong. I know that nothing is hurting me right now. Or we can hold off on that one for the time being. However, just keep in mind, for my chronic pain people that you know who you are. And if you don't, if you are seeing this on another platform, then reach out to me and we will discuss this for you and get you a custom plan. Now, for my chronic pain people, you've heard me say this before. If we stop the movement, we are feeding into that fear avoidance behavior where your brain is trying to stop you from progressing forward. Okay. So I'm going to give you another little story. When I would do deadlift exercises early on in the beginning, I modulated the weight to make sure that I didn't really increase that pain. Okay. Because that often can just make it worse when it flares or when it is presenting itself. Okay. We're going to expose ourselves to it. You may have a little bit of pain during the movement, but know that movement is medicine. Blood flow is necessary. So when I would do this movement and have a little bit of pain, I might stop and breathe a little bit more. I might do a stretch in between reps. I might rest for a little bit. And then I would go back and do the rest of my sets as much as I possibly could through some of the pain. Okay. Like I said, we don't want to push it so far that it flares it up. Okay. So if we're new on in the process, then we may be going over that threshold. Remember the cup analogy. We want to make sure that we fill up the cup, but that we don't tip over that allostatic load of the cup so that it flares you up and it stays for a long period of time. Because the more that you expose yourself to this and the more that you tell your body you are safe by doing the movement, not just by thinking, not just by telling yourself that you are safe, but actually exposing yourself to the movement pattern progressively over time. So maybe we start with a lower weight and with an assisted deadlift where we are picking something up off an elevated surface and only doing half the range of motion. A lot of you have seen the banded hip hinges that I give you, which are deadlift exercises, or the seated deadlift, or a kneeling deadlift. These are all, or the hinges, these are all similar motions in a graded fashion to get you from that to the lift. For example, when I started lifting heavy back at the beginning of this year, I'm talking heavy, like over 150, 200 pounds and up and up and up. I'm trying to get to that 300 mark. I've hit about 255 so far. I started with a rack pull. A rack pull is back exercise. It's also a hinge, but it's from an elevation. Okay, so it does use a little bit more of the back there, but it's a really good place to start, like the kneeling hinge exercises. Once I got comfortable with that, I progressed myself down from the floor using a trap bar. So we're still elevated off the floor a little bit. Then as I got really good at that, then I started introducing the regular barbell deadlift. Okay, I will alternate between the trap bar deadlift and the barbell deadlift. All right. Both of them require different center of mass, different form, if you will, and everybody responds differently. For me personally, I like a trap bar deadlift because it's more comfortable. It feels more safe. I can lift heavier with that. As I progress down, I'll go heavier on the regular barbell deadlift. So this is just an example using my experience. Now in the beginning, doing the deadlift heavy, there were some times where I had pain afterwards, okay? Pain after an exercise is not a bad thing. All right. I have patients and I have clients that are wary of when they do an exercise and then they have pain afterwards and the days afterwards. In the beginning, this pain, like I said, we vary the different things that I've already mentioned today. I've mentioned a couple of things for you. And in this module, you'll hear me talk about those things. But pain doesn't mean damage. So if you have a little bit of pain after the exercise, and even if the pain persists for a couple days, this is not a bad thing. This can be a form of delayed onset muscle soreness, okay? In the beginning, when your brain is trying to get those neuroplastic effects and we're trying to centralize that pain, pain can be more intense. And I'll introduce pain factors here. So let's talk about the intensity. In the beginning, that sharp stabbing, like sometimes achy, dull type pain, maybe what you experience in the beginning. Like I said, if it's only there for a couple days or for a day afterwards, even if it's a little bit intense, it's not the end of the world. And it doesn't mean damage. It's a part of the healing process. So it's actually good to expose yourself to this and continue doing those movements anyways, unless it flares you up or unless like something actually happens, okay? A flare up does not mean I have pain just a little bit for a couple days afterwards. A flare up is something that we can't get under control without additional help, okay? So we have to make a very clear distinction between the two things and know that even if we have a little bit of pain, we're still safe doing those movements. Your body's just not used to it as much yet. It took me years to get my body actually used to doing the movements because my core stability was shot after having that curvature progress as much as it did. So for me personally, I ended up having to do more repetitions and it took me a little bit longer. I also had a ton of stress during chiropractic school. I was sitting 8 to 10, if not more hours a day studying. So you have to take into account all of these factors when we're talking about this. Let me know if you have any questions so far on this or drop them in the comments below or shoot me a message in this community. Okay. Delayed onset muscle soreness. All right. Like I said in the beginning, sometimes for people, this can mean a little bit of pain. Okay. It's not a bad thing. We already covered that. All right. But delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, comes in after doing exercise, especially if you are not used to exposing yourself to the specific movement. So in a lot of cases, when you begin a program, these are new movements that you haven't done before. These are movements that we need to do, but movements that your body is going to go, whoa, hang on a second, haven't done that in a while, haven't done that before, I'm not sure about this. Know that that's okay. All right. Now, the soreness, some pain, like I said, is expected. If it's important, we say it often. So these things that I'm repeating, take to mind, write down in a notebook or on your computer as you're watching this video so you can remind yourself, get it in your brain, say it out loud. Those are concepts of neuroplasticity and learning, where when you hear something, you only retain a certain amount of it. If you don't repeat it, write it and say it. And if you do all of those things, like when I was studying for boards, you are able to retain information a little bit better, okay? So some key points about delayed onset muscle soreness. Delayed onset muscle soreness is when we are causing microscopic damage to muscle fibers, okay? And the inflammatory process comes in, and part of the inflammatory process is sometimes a little bit of pain, okay? Blood flow, swelling internally, where those infiltrates are coming in trying to repair that muscle, where we need to get the post-workout protein and carbohydrate right after our workout. If you need more information about this, let me know, and I will drop in the notes for this module my favorite source of post-workout that I've been doing for the past 8 to 10 years. When I don't do this, let me just tell you, your body needs protein and carbohydrate to repair the muscle after you have worked it. When we don't get this, and when I don't get my post-workout, which is actually in the form of a shake, you can do whatever works for you, but it is a fast delivery system where it gets that protein and carbohydrate with electrolytes like the element and water back into the muscle fast so that it can repair fast, okay? Now, usually people say this is caused by intense exercise, but I know from dealing with the, hundreds of patients that I've helped and clients that I've helped that people experience this differently. Sometimes when I do a hard workout, I'll have muscle soreness some the day after, really the next day after, and sometimes that third or fourth day, okay? If I'm going really heavy, like if I'm doing a 275-pound squat, I'm going to be pretty freaking sore. That's normal. That's not a bad thing, okay? You've really worked it. Sometimes, arguably, like if I get a little more fatigued and a little bit more down in my immune system on that fourth or fifth day, I know that I pushed my cup way too far and I might not have gotten enough sleep and enough recovery. So remember these things I'm telling you about this, okay? So the microscopic damage, it's not a bad thing. It's just part of when we break down muscle in order to build it back up again. Those amino acids go in to rebuild those proteins with the glycogen, and it repairs those muscles and it builds it bigger and stronger so that you can continue to do more movement afterwards, okay? Now, sometimes tenderness, muscle stiffness, a little bit of pain, sometimes reduced range of motion, some tightness and soreness, I think I said that already, can be expected as symptoms of delayed onset muscle soreness after you do exercises. For people that are just starting, or if we have a really high sensitivity level, this can come in pretty early, almost within a certain amount of time after exercise. Okay, so pay attention to the movements, pay attention to the one that feel good, the ones that you have a little bit more pain and a little bit more symptoms afterwards. And if you are working with me one-on-one, let me know and we will talk about that and maybe modify the program a little bit. And as I always say, if you're not, then if you need somebody, let me know and I would be happy to start working with you and do an evaluation. Okay. How to manage this. All right. So managing delayed onset muscle soreness. I said already in the beginning that movement is medicine. The blood flow is medicine for you. Getting in light movement like walking, like range of motion drills, or active dynamic stretching like I've given you. If you're in my program, you have gotten these things, are going to help reduce the soreness, okay, after the exercise. This is the best thing. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to ice it and I don't want you to use anti-inflammatories, because what did we already say about the inflammatory process? This is necessary. It is necessary for your body to go through the inflammatory process in order to heal, okay? Without some soreness, sometimes, like, don't judge your workout based on the soreness. I used to do this. This is not a concept that I advocate, because sometimes you may not have soreness. After having said all of this, you may not have soreness, okay? It depends on your body. It depends on how hard you work, the workout, the movements, the load, the, allostatic load in your body, meaning everything that you have done, recovery, nutrition, hydration, stress, sleep, all of these things matter for you. And yours might be a little bit different. There are certain days where I go do the squats and the deadlifts and I wake up the next day and I'm like, wow, I'm not sore. I don't have a lot of soreness. I'm kind of expecting it to come in the next couple of days. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. So just giving you a little bit of variability, a little bit of variation here for that. Now, you can keep working out. Like I said, light activity is great. Taking a walk later in the day or the next morning, or doing some gentle yoga. Like I said, dynamic stretching, and also things like foam rolling. Or if you can't see behind me, but I've got compression boots in my house that I use for myself and for my patients in person. Things like that, things like massage gun and all of those things are a great way to desensitize, to get stimulus in so that you can get blood flow to the area so that it can heal faster. Also, the compression boots, just a little plug for this. If you're interested, let me know and I can get you some information about these, or send you to one on Amazon. We can get something comparable. So the Normatec system, I love the Normatec system because of the science, but the compression boots actually compress in a way where it flushes without backflow. So it prevents all that fluid and lactic acid and everything, which actually is not a bad thing. It can be used as fuel, which is something I learned this year, which is pretty cool. It prevents it from backflowing. So it pushes it out through the body, through your lymphatic system, so you can excrete it. Pretty freaking cool. And it helps with soreness and sleep and everything. There are all sorts of things. I have a client that has a massage table. So there are all sorts of things that you can do, but you have to make sure you do what works for you, okay? The last thing that I want to mention about this before we talk about a few more things about pain is hydration. Hydration, hydration, hydration. You've seen me show you this cup a couple times. My salt sticker right here is the Element. If you are a client of mine, or if you would like a sample of this, I have the link in my link tree on my Instagram. I'll put it in the resource section of this course as well too. My cup right now has electrolytes in it. It has half an Element pack and a full thing of water. I consume at least one of those a day. Your body requires salt and water, electrolytes and water, especially if you are working out and if you're in pain, because it impacts so many different functions in the body. All right. So Let me know if you have any questions about that so far. I'm going to go over a precursor as the last thing here for the next module, where we are going to go into more detail about your pain and about the different factors and what it's going to look like as you recover. All right. We've talked ad nauseum today about pain intensity and about soreness and about what to expect after exercise and as you move through your journey. And it will change. It will definitely change. You'll notice that, like these factors that I'm going to list, like the area of pain, the intensity of pain, the timing of your pain, and the ability for you to do more things without having as much pain, you are going to notice various things happening as you progress through your program. Okay. You're going to notice more ability, smaller pain area. The intensity of pain, like we talked about a little bit already, is going to change, and you are going to notice more ability with less pain as you go through this program and as you continue to apply these concepts to your life. Let me know if you have any questions about everything that we covered today. Definitely go back and rewatch this video to make sure that you retain all of the information, and I look forward to seeing you in the next module.